Community engagement and fundraising are most successful in both cases when they draw on a diversity of groups in the community that the nonprofit serves. I'm going to start with two brief case examples. Example number one comes from the Soraya, is the largest performing arts center in the San Fernando Valley. It's based at Cal State Northridge. Part of its mission is to get CSUN students into the hall and to provide them with other activities that will help them with their education and careers. Juliana Alvarez is the Campus Engagement Associate for the Soraya. The Student Community Engagement Program has a number of components: free or low-cost tickets to events, jobs at the Soraya for students, scholarships and internships, reduced rental rates for student events, on-stage seating for students to bring them closer to the art, and master classes. Out of this successful program comes 4 best practices. Best practice number 1, engagement works best if done by someone who looks like you. Students don't want to be invited by Thor Steingraber, who's the CEO of the Soraya. He says that himself. He wants to have the initial reach out, the engagement, done by somebody who does look more like them, and that's Juliana. She's a young person of color, Spanish speaking, and a CSUN alum who comes to meetings in her Matadors sweatshirt. This best practice can be applied to fundraising as well, especially when approaching younger donors. Many nonprofits today have junior boards whose responsibilities include reaching out to younger donors, and the age range varies widely. Number 2, Juliana's student-focused activities are part of a larger community engagement program targeted to alumni, arts educators in local schools, renters of the space, patrons and supporters, donors or foundations and corporations. Each of those groups have their own specific dedicated programs. Those activities, however, can support the student program and vice versa. Best practice number 3, the Soraya's community engagement program is an energy and financial investment in the community, and the Soraya is very careful in its fundraising activities to not be seen just as, quote, withdrawing funds from the community, but rather getting donations to help support events and the community activities surrounding them, so as not to be seen as an extractive force, but as a collaborative force. And that's an important part of how they see community engagement. Fourth and finally, community engagement works best when it's driven by statistics about program success. For example, CSUN gave out 968 free student tickets this last season, an investment in students by itself that totaled more than $50,000. That was in addition to many $22 discount tickets for students. I go regularly to events at the Soraya, and believe me, regular tickets don't get in for $22. That's also a way of supporting student participation. So that's example number 1. Example number 2 is the Musicians at Play education program. And the nonprofit Musicians at Play Foundation has for more than a decade connected musical training and events to Los Angeles area kids, led by the sister-in-law and brother of legendary film composer John Williams. Its community engagement activities center on recruiting students into its education program. They meet with student administrators, teachers, and parents, and present a short concert that's performed by professional musicians. The goal is to offer music education workshops to students aligned with California educational standards. Professional musicians act as mentors. They provide one-on-one and small group coaching, as well as technical instruction to students to prepare them if they're contemplating a career in music for auditions, rehearsals, and ultimately for live performance. The program is tuition free, and a social justice initiative at Musicians at Play supports students of color, students learning English, and students from low-income families. So out of all that comes 8 best practices, and I'm going to finish my remarks for today by describing each of them one by one. So, number 1, building a diverse group of partner organizations enriches community engagement. MAP staff does this by going to regional Chamber of Commerce meetings, local government meetings, PTAs, and local higher education institutions, as well as LAUSD and other public schools. They also make contact with entertainment unions, film and TV companies, community nonprofits like the Guitar Foundation, which donated a bunch of guitars for use by students. The point is, community engagement requires reaching out into the community and making contact with groups that can help you to be successful in engaging the community, and that in turn can be adapted for fundraising purposes. Best practice number 2, for each of MAP's programs, leadership asks a critical question. Who's our market for this program, and how will it be paid for? Then community engagement can be built around that definition, having a specific market and having a way to pay for whatever the activities are. And I know that sounds overly simplified, but it's something that often doesn't get done at the beginning of a program. Best practice number 3, MAP sends out post-event email surveys to program participants to gather information about impact and to ask the basic question, what do you want that you don't already have? And that helps to drive future programming. Number 4, MAP staff go to other organizations, music education programs, and fundraisers to identify best practices that they can adapt. Number 5, because local elected officials like State Senator Caroline Menjivar want more music education in the schools, MAP also has regular contact with their offices and includes them in programming. Number 6, MAP produces musical concerts in partnership with other community nonprofits. Mend happened to be one of those some time ago, to raise funds for both organizations, a strategy that opens new opportunities on both sides. Number 7, MAP creates opportunities for the parents of their student participants to see firsthand what's being offered to their child. For example, they ask parents to drive kids to program sites where they're going to be conducting activities like the Warner Brothers studio lot, and to stay on to witness the MAP program as an observer. Then they can be more enthusiastic fundraisers, and some of them become donors themselves. 8th, and finally, MAP students also perform at musical events the organization produces, increasing motivation for parents and others to donate to the program because they can see firsthand the impact it has. So those are 8 best practices that come from Musicians at Play Foundation. It's time for Marianne to join the conversation. Marianne, over to you.
All right. Thank you, Tom. Been out in the field talking to a lot of nonprofits. This is a really challenging time to run a nonprofit or to be on the staff of a nonprofit because you may, depending on what kind of services you provide, you may be seeing more clients as government services are cut back. And you may also be seeing less revenue because of, again, government cuts, but also impacts on the larger economy. So fundraising has become even more important. It's always important, but even more important in recent months. I'm going to really focus my comments on connecting with the business community specifically. You know, we as nonprofits tend to like to be together with like minds. And it could be that if you're a mental health organization, you partner and meet regularly with other mental health organizations, or likewise, if you're a food bank or you're an after-school program, you may meet with other nonprofits. But I would really encourage you strongly to join a business organization, whether that's a local chamber, whether it's a service club like Rotary or Kiwanis or another, Valley Economic Alliance, Valley Industry and Commerce Association, where you are going to regularly connect with people in the business community and kind of represent your organization to a larger population. But don't just join. I recommend that you go very regularly every month. That's really critical if people are going to start associating you with your charity. And you might think about it as they'll see my face, but pretty soon they'll also see, quote unquote, the face of my nonprofit. They'll kind of be one and the same, but people need to see you regularly. If you only come every 3 or 4 months, people don't remember who you are and what you do and what was that organization again? I don't really remember. If you're there all the time, they'll begin to connect you and the nonprofit that you represent. Part of not just going to meetings, but also participating actively, whether it's joining a committee or helping with a fundraising event or another kind of an event the particular organization you've joined is sponsoring. And when you go to those meetings, those events, whatever, post that on your agency's social media. Hey, today I went to XYZ's fundraising event, and maybe you take a photo of yourself and the leader of that particular organization, the Kiwanis president or the chamber president or whatever it is, and you're there at some event. Post that on your social media and make a big deal about that, because it shows that you are actively promoting and encouraging people to support your nonprofit. Another important thing when you go to events like that, meetings and so on, collect contact information. The old way was to do it via business cards, and certainly it's always good to have some of those with you because some people like to do that still. But of course, there are a lot of folks nowadays who just share contact via phone to phone. So Either way is fine. But the other critical piece to that is once you get back to the office, make sure that those business cards or that new contact on your phone is now entered into your e-blast list, your newsletter list, your database, whatever it is. So they actually will hear from your nonprofit in subsequent weeks or months, or however often you send out e-blasts or newsletters or whatever. As part of your preparing for these events or meetings, have a few quick statistics or client stories that you can share. Again, you're not going to have a lot of time, but maybe you're chatting with somebody and you say, wow, this year it's been pretty incredible. Since January, year over year, the number of clients we're serving has increased by 10% or 20% or whatever the number might be. Or something like if you run an after school program, you might say that we've done a study and 90% of the kids that go through our program end up graduating from high school and go on to college. It's very short and very sweet. Or a client story might be do home visits. And last week we visited a client who was 100 years old. Can you imagine that? She's lived in the valley her whole life. Very short, but it just gives that person that you're chatting with a little bit of a sense about your organization and what you're doing and what's significant about the work that you're doing. And there's obviously a need for that work, especially if you've seen an increase in clients served. Another point, never ask directly at an event for a donation. It kind of not destroys, but lessens people's trust in you. That, or if you belong to the Kiwanis or you belong to the chamber, whatever it is, when you're there, your purpose is to promote and encourage and help develop that particular organization. Yes, you are representing your nonprofit, but people need to know that you're really committed to that organization as well. And when you ask directly for money, it kind of puts people in an awkward situation and it feels like you really have some ulterior motives. Now, depending upon, I'll say that, but then depending upon conversation, it may be that you have a nice conversation with a business person at this event or meeting or whatever, and it would be a natural to then later in your office send a follow-up email. Jane, it was so nice to chat with you today. Just wanted you to know that we have an event coming up, and if your company would like to sponsor, here's the guidelines for sponsorship, something like that. So it's after the actual meeting that you're sending that follow-up. And it may not be appropriate. You may want to wait a little bit, build a little more trust and so on before you do that. But at least my recommendation would be to wait till later, either by email or a phone call. Or now this is an interesting caveat. While I would not recommend asking directly for money when you're at an event, you can ask for in-kind goods. So maybe you're at a meeting and everybody's going around introducing themselves, the name of their organization, and you might be able to say, hey, just a reminder that our organization is doing a food drive for Thanksgiving. If you'd like to donate any food, or if you're willing to do a food drive at your company, please see me afterwards. So in-kind stuff, food, toys, clothing, whatever it might be, backpack supplies for the school year, whatever it might be, those things are okay. Again, just make sure it's very short, very brief, and you're not overwhelming people with your ad for your particular event or drive that you're conducting. Another possibility, if you have the space capacity, you might consider hosting a committee meeting or a board meeting for that group that you belong to, especially if you are working with a nonprofit that has a lot of visuals. If you're in an after school program or an arts program or a food bank where there's a lot of activity and there's a lot of visuals where people might be interested, see if you can host a meeting there if you have the space to do so. That may not, if you're a counseling agency and all you have is offices, maybe that's not the best thing because it's not all that visually interesting. Now, another important point, if a business or a business contact does in fact make a contribution. Oh, and I should back up and say this. One of the things that I found over time when I would get involved, and I've done this for many years, got involved in a business organization, never asked for money. But when the holidays came, all of a sudden the checks started to arrive. And $1,000 for this person. I had no idea that he even had the capacity to give $1,000. A family, like I met a business person and his or her family got together for the holidays, collectively wanted to make a contribution, and this check shows up. Those kinds of things. So it does happen, And again, of course, if you send out a newsletter, e-newsletter, whatever, maybe they respond to an e-newsletter that you send out, or a appeal letter that you send out, whatever it might be. Just being careful about making those direct asks during a meeting itself. Now, going on to what I was going to say about making a donation, be sure that you recognize that quickly. Like ideally within a couple of weeks, they should get a letter, a donation receipt, and a thank you letter. It's really important for people to get that because in years past, I've been in situations where my husband and I gave to some charity and we never got a receipt from them. And we actually had to call them we were doing our taxes and like, oh my gosh, we know we wrote a check to so and so or whatever. We never heard back from them, never gotten it. It's kind of embarrassing to do that. Or if it comes 2 months late, just be sure that you quickly get out a donation receipt, including some kind of an acknowledgement letter. And one last thing about companies, and you may already be aware of this, and I might not be telling you anything new, but just because it has been a shift in the last, I would say 5 to 10 years, more and more larger companies, the Kaisers and Wells Fargos and Citibanks and so of this world, have predetermined for issues, charities, causes, whatever, that they're going to support. So it could be that they only support the environment, children's programs, health organizations, and education. I mean, maybe it's along that line. Large organization, and if you don't fit in those four, don't waste your time sending them a proposal or whatever, because you're not going to get anywhere. It's a waste of your time and it's a waste of their time even getting the letter. If you do fit, I mean, of course, now you've built up a relationship with somebody from that company. So then it might be a natural at some point to email them and say, I noticed that our organization fits into your corporate guidelines. I've researched them on the web. Could I send a proposal and then kind of see how they respond to that? But many of these organizations already have predetermined that. Now, that's not necessarily true of small businesses or mid-sized businesses, but the larger ones tend to do that. So just being aware of, again, not wasting your time and their time applying for something that doesn't qualify. It's always good to research a company and their charitable giving guidelines before you actually approach them. So that's just another little business related tip. Oh, and the other thing I should say, though, is that companies may have their priorities, but the individuals who work for those companies may have other charitable interests. So maybe you have you have a charity that doesn't fit into one of those four. I'll just use Wells Fargo as an example, but somebody who works for Wells Fargo that you happen to know likes your cause, likes the kind of work that you do, and so it may be that he or she makes a personal contribution, again, as a follow-up to your involvement with some organization where there's a Wells Fargo executive that's also involved. Never, don't negate that possibility because there could be individual contributions coming from corporations or that have other philanthropic interests. So I think that's it. Those are the tips and points I wanted to share. Thank you, Alex, for hosting this conversation, and I wish you all
Absolutely.
well in this very challenging time.
Yep. Me too.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you all.
Thank you. Take care.